In March 2010, Robert Davis formally launched his coffee table book, Jamaica by Air. After a culmination of 15 flights shooting from a helicopter with no doors to obstruct the view, what has resulted is a book of just over 200 amazing aerial shots. It covers Jamaica's 14 parishes and highlights the majesty and beauty of our mountains, rivers, waterfalls, monuments, buildings, and our people. It is truly a visual feast and a magic carpet ride over our beautiful island, Jamaica. This is the story of the making of Jamaica by Air.
Charles.
Hey Robert, how are you?
I'm good.
Good to see you.
Hi Robert, how are you?
I'm fine. How have you been?
Good, it's great to see you. Okay, well, we're here to discuss your book, Jamaica by Air. But as far as I know, you're a managing director of an IT company. How did you arrive here? Like, how did you start taking pictures, photos? Like, is it just a hobby, passion? Are you considering a new profession?
Definitely a passion and a hobby as well. What happened is that I've always loved helicopters. I've always loved flying in helicopters, and I've actually done helicopter lessons. And unfortunately, the company that was offering the lessons stopped offering the lessons. So I started looking around to see how can I go flying all over the Jamaica. And the idea occurred to me, why not do a book and show people a view of Jamaica that they've never seen, which I've been fortunate enough to see on many occasions. And I wanted to show Jamaicans both here and abroad and the rest of the world just how beautiful Jamaica is. Once the concept of the book had actually been finalized, the key was to get sponsorship, because helicopters and a project of this nature is not cheap. You needed corporate support to do it. So I started by envisioning in my mind that there would only be 4 sponsors. So what I did was I hired Island Hoppers helicopters out of my own pocket. They landed at Tinson Pen, and I spent an hour and a half shooting Kingston, shooting Port Royal, Lime Key, Maiden Key, National Heroes Park, the National Stadium, New Kingston. And I put together a whole series of shots based on that first shoot. And then I took these images and I then went to the various heads of various companies and started shopping the project to them, showing them the pictures and communicating to them my vision of what I thought the book would look like and the advantages to them and to the country. first on board was Jamaica National.
Robert's photographs chronicle a journey across Jamaica, giving added dimension to places we sometimes take for granted, while literally providing a new perspective on the island, which I'm sure not many persons would have had without the benefit of him hanging out of a helicopter, held in by only a harness and a seatbelt. Because of my own love of photography and my strong belief in Robert's ability to deliver, we immediately responded positively to this idea of capturing photographs of Jamaica and to have it published.
After Jamaica National, after a few more rejections, I got ICWI to come on board.
When I was approached by people in my office about this book, I was skeptical. So I asked to see this young man. He came into the office and started to tell me about the book. I had my doubts because he said it was going to be an earth-shattering experience. And when he told me how he was going to do it, I said, no, here is a man who is going to show his guts when he has fallen from the helicopter. Suffice it to say that some of the world's greatest people have been mad. And again, it has been proven here with this wonderful, really wonderful book. You have done yourself proud. You have done Jamaica proud. And we in ICW are extremely proud to be associated with it. Congratulations and all the very best.
And then I got Dolphin Cove to come on board. And the story of Dolphin Cove is actually an interesting one.
I was actually traveling at the time when Marilyn, my wife, gave me a call in a panic. She said, there's some crazy guy hanging out over a helicopter and causing mayhem in the place. Huh? She said she thought it might have been for a few seconds, but he wasn't going anywhere. Right? I got a call from Robert a couple of days later when I had returned, saying, first of all, he apologized for having caused a disturbance, if he had caused a disturbance, but he had some fabulous pictures, and I was welcome to come and have a look. Well, about a week or two later, when I came to Kingston, I dropped in and saw Robert and was absolutely amazed. I never knew that you could get such clarity in photography. Robert said to me, would like to participate and assist him in the venture? And I was, without hesitation, ready to go.
And the final sponsor to come on board was Claro.
It is often that a picture paints 1,000 words, but apparently a picture, as with books, has the ability to create experiences. And so it is not surprising that Claro's CEO, Alejandro Gutierrez, who I represent this afternoon, applauded Robert Davis for his photographic work. In fact, Robert takes a pleasure in recounting Alejandro's comments that he learned more about Jamaica in 2 hours from Robert's work than he had in the 2 years he has been in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that sense of appreciation for the arts, as well as the obvious beauty of Jamaica, that prompted Claro's sponsorship of the publication of Jamaica by Air. And so Claro is again extremely happy to sponsor the establishment and maintenance of Jamaica by Air. It will showcase not only Robert's work per se, but indeed the beauty of our island. Indeed, it is partnership, especially corporate partnerships like these, that will create the necessary environment where everything is possible.
Suffice to say, there is no way that this project could have happened without them, and I'm eternally grateful to them.
What would you say is your most favorite moment or memory of this entire experience?
Probably one of my favorite moments was when we were shooting, very early when we started doing the book, was when we were shooting Lime Key and Maiden Key. And I love the sea as well. So the combination of flying over the sea and flying over Lime Key and banking very hard to actually shoot the swimmers and the people on the beach sun tanning, and that was great fun. I really enjoyed that. That was probably one of my favorite moments. Another really fun time was when I shot a group of friends who were actually liming out at Pelican Bar in St. Elizabeth, and that was fun as well, because it's one thing to fly over just scenery, but when you're flying over your friends and they're waving back at you and you're shooting them and waving back at them, those stand out as some of the really fun flights that I did.
And what do you think was your most difficult shot to capture?
By far the most difficult shot that I had to take. And I had to take the shot because I needed a shot of people playing polo. And we had to fly over Caymanas polo field and shoot a polo match. It was actually between Jamaica and Barbados. And you'd be amazed at just how large a polo field is and just how far apart the horses are when they're running for that ball. That was very challenging. So we had to circle many times. And eventually, what I had to do was I had to wait until the horses were running past the tree, which was by the side of the field, so I could get them all bunched up together with the perspective of the tree. Okay. That was challenging. Another challenging shot was YS Falls. And the reason that was challenging was because YS Falls is in a valley. And when you're in a valley, there's not a lot of light. So we had to take the helicopter right into the valley in YS Falls and circle 2 or 3 times before I could get a clean shot of the falls going up the hill. It turned out to be a very good shot, but it was very challenging.
Which was the most unexpected? Like, what did you just not expect to see and then you just happened to capture?
There are 2 of them that stand out. In the beginning of the book, there's a shot of a sinkhole, a huge sinkhole. Okay. It must be at least, I would guess, at least 40, 50 feet deep. And we were flying over the cockpit country on the way to St. Elizabeth from Montego Bay. And the cameraman in the back who was shooting video, he pointed out and he said, "Look at that hole." And we all banked the helicopter and came around, and there was this huge sinkhole that none of us had ever seen, including the helicopter pilot. Okay. And I shot it, and that was really something you don't expect to see.
What would you say is your favorite shot in the entire book?
I have 2 actually. The shot in Portland of 3 little boys in a canoe, and they're actually rowing across a deep section of the sea with reefs on either side. I really like that shot. That was one of these once-in-a-lifetime shots.
Okay.
The second shot, which is my second favorite shot, which is surprising for most people, is a shot, and it's in the middle of the book, called S-Bend.
S-Bend. Okay, tell us about that.
S-Bend is the shot of a jet ski. The rider of the jet ski has just done an S with it.
Okay.
And I saw him coming, and I thought to myself, this is going to be an interesting shot. And I followed him as he did the S on the actual jet ski. And just as he was lining up with a fishing boat, I took the shot.
Okay.
And the way the colors came off, the S behind him and him pointing at this fishing boat with all of these different colors, came out to be a really very nice shot. And it's a kind of shot that you get once in a lifetime. You can't duplicate it, you can't fake it.
Right.
It's just one of these things that happens once in a lifetime. And that actually, because of that, is probably my second favorite shot in the book.
Okay, well, I know for me that Jamaica is so lush and beautiful. There's so much that I love on land. How would you express what your favorite parish is from the air?
Hands down, Portland. Okay. Portland is amazingly beautiful.
How are you able to get such clarity in the pictures? I mean, you're up on high, but the pictures in the book are really sharp.
That's a very good question. There are two things that you have to do. One of them is when you're shooting fast action, for example, if I was shooting a sports event, you use a very high shutter speed to still the athlete because you need that shutter to fire off very quickly. The helicopter itself is vibrating, and you obviously being in the helicopter, you have to be steadying your camera against the vibration of the helicopter. So you must have a very, very high shutter speed to still the photo so that the photo comes out sharp and not blurred. The other thing as well is it's very important to shoot at the right time. With aerial photography, you always shoot in the morning or in the afternoon. And the reason for that is that the shadows give what you're shooting dimension.
Okay.
If you shot something without shadows and from above, it looks very flat. For example, if you look at the shot of the statue at the entrance of Emancipation Park, without that shadow of the statue being cast on the ground, you wouldn't be able to tell the size and the scale of the actual statue.
Okay, well, you've talked about balancing, shaking, shifting. It sounds a little scary to me. Speak about safety when you're up there in the air.
That's another thing. All the shots from the book are shot with no doors on. So I'm actually hanging out of the helicopter, but I'm held in with both a seatbelt and a harness. So there's a little bit of redundancy there. If the seatbelt goes, you have the harness to hold you and vice versa.
So a harness, a seat belt, an anchor. It sounds like you're very strapped in. Well, I think you have to have a certain personality then in order to take these pictures and to be up in the air.
If you're afraid of heights, I don't think that doing a book from the air with a helicopter with no doors on would be a wise
idea.
thing to do.
I think
So,
not.
yeah.
Okay, so talk to us about like the actual image development, publishing, printing. Are you responsible for all of that, the layout, or is there someone else that's handling that for you?
That was done by some very good friends of mine who own a company called Energesis Limited.
Okay.
And they actually did the layout of the books. They did what was called the photo mastery. I worked very closely with them. They're very good. So I kind of left a lot of the layout of the book to them with my feedback. So they would lay it out and come to me and say, what do you think of this? And I'd give them some, well, why not change this? Why not change that? Right. But a lot of the layout of the book was done by Dainsworth and Dion Richards of Energesis Limited.
So talk about hiring the best. Speak to me about the pilot and the helicopter. What company do you work with for this project?
We use two companies, one more than the other. We use primarily a company called Island Hoppers, and they're based in Ocho Rios and in Montego Bay. And two pilots that we used primarily was one named John, who owns the company, and the other is one named Chris. And then the other helicopter company that we used was Captain's Aviation out of Kingston, and that was a fellow by the name of Mark. We flew maybe 12 to 14 times for a total of maybe 15 to 16 hours.
Wow.
Over the course of maybe 9 months putting together the book. And while I was shooting out of the front of the helicopter, my videographer, whose name is Jason Levy, he was shooting out of the back.
Jason Levy.
I know you know Jason. And typically there was a fourth person in the helicopter. When you're shooting, you have to decide whether you're going to be taking a panoramic shot or a close-up.
Okay.
So if you look, for example, of the shot of Portmore, that's a wide panoramic shot. So you need a shorter lens, which gives you a wider and more panoramic shot. When you're shooting close-up, for example, the shots of the people going down in the kayak down White River, you need to get right in on them and then use a zoom lens. So in addition to Jason in the back with his video camera, I would always have someone who would be passing the lenses to me so I could change the lens depending on what kind of shot I needed.
So when you're in the air, are you just hovering to get that shot, or?
It depends. You get to have your own sixth sense about when and what shot to take. So many times shots are taken that just happen out of the blue
Okay.
while you're moving, and you just take it quickly without the camera, without the helicopter having to stop. On other occasions, you do have to hover. For example, if you look at the shot of Rick's Cafe, where the girl was jumping from the high jump, we hovered there for like 5 minutes. And we were shouting
To
at
wait
her,
for a
jump,
jumper."
jump, jump. But we hovered for at least 4 to 5 minutes just waiting for her to jump. So it depends on the shot that you're trying to get.
Right.
But on many occasions, you literally just fly past the shot, see it, and shoot it. And on other occasions, you actually have to hover and wait for it.
Okay.
Another example of a shot that just happened by chance was, if you look in the beginning of the book, there's a shot of an eagle ray.
Okay.
And it's cruising along a reef in Portland. And when we're flying over, the pilot at the time was Chris.
Okay.
And Chris just looked down and said, "Look at that eagle ray." And I quickly just pointed the camera down, took the shot, and it just came out to be such a fantastic shot. Totally unexpected, totally unplanned, but just came out really nicely.
Serendipitous, as they say. Well, I've been blessed by having a copy of your wonderful book, and at the beginning of it is a poem that says Jamaica, the Beautiful Isle. Tell me a little bit about this poem.
That poem was written by a very, very good friend of mine by the name of Karen Armstrong. I called Karen up and I said to her, "Do you want to see some shots?" And she came by my house and I showed her some shots, and she really liked the shots.
Okay.
Went off and came back to me the next day and handed me this poem and said, "I was inspired to write this poem. Can you put this in the book?" And I happily, obviously, I said yes,
Right.
because it does enhance the book.
Okay, well, I'm just looking through the book at all the pictures, and actually there's a great shot here of Prospect Great House, and that's actually where we are now.
Prospect were very kind to allow us to use their property.
Well, Robert, honestly, it's been a pleasure talking to you about your book. I can only imagine the feeling of being up in the air and seeing what you see. I'm in love with Jamaica all over again. Honestly, I can only imagine the feeling of seeing what you see when you see Jamaica by air.
Would you like to?
I would love to.
Have you ever been in a helicopter?
Never.
Let's cross that one off your
Really?
bucket